Hello and welcome to Dave's Delightful Dishes. As always, I'm Dave, and it's a delight for me to have you here in my kitchen today. And today I'm sending a recipe out to Melissa in Maryland, who I know has one of these instant pots and loves using it. So I want to try to make a recipe with that today to show you on this cold, wet winter day something we can do with this quickly to have a nice, warm, refreshing meal. And what we're going to work on is beef stew. So let's talk about the ingredients that we're going to have here for this instant pot beef stew. First thing we need is a tablespoon of butter. I'm using salted. Doesn't really matter that much because you're going to add salt later, but that means I don't have to add as much if I have the salt already in the butter. I have 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of beef chuck, which I then cubed up into about 1-inch cubes. A little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. I was working my way around the cartilage. If you don't want to do that, and because they do sell stew meat in the grocery store, you can certainly do that. When I looked at it today, it was way more fat, way less lean, and I just wasn't liking the look of those cuts. So I got myself a steak and a chuck roast and cut it up for myself. I have about 1/2 pound of new potatoes that I've cut into halves or quarters, depending on how big they were. So some of them are halved, the larger ones I've got quartered. 8 ounces of mushrooms, sliced, and it's a thick slice, because we want to have these still have not just be floating in there, just really be there. And then I have 1 onion that I wedged into 8 pieces, so it's going to end up being lots of little chunks there, but big chunks that'll stick on your spoon later rather than just disappearing into the stew. And 2 large carrots, in this case it was 3 medium carrots, that I've sliced into about 1/2 to 3/4 inch slices, and those are going to be nice and chunky. You can add parsnips if you like instead, or as well as kind of whatever root vegetable you want to put in there. You can sub those in and out depending on what your desires are. And then 2 cloves of garlic, minced, 2 cups of beef broth, and 1 cup of dry red wine. In this case, I'm using my Malbec. A tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and a tablespoon of tomato paste. We use 1 teaspoon of salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of ground pepper. 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. I'm using coarse ground here, which is going to give it some bite. And then a teaspoon of dried rosemary and 1 bay leaf. And my bay leaves are a little bit beat up, so I've actually got 2 in here, but they're smaller. And then we got to hook up the Instant Pot, and we're going to start working on that in just a second. So we have the Instant Pot set up to its saute setting right now, and we're going to drop that tablespoon of butter in. And we'll let that melt down here real quick. And once it's all the way melted, we're going to go ahead and start adding our beef. Or at least halfway melted, because it's not going to take very long. So now this is going to have to require batches. So we're going to put probably about half of this beef in. We'll see. Yeah, let's do half and half. And I have to just keep that working around this, and we're going to brown it. Just, let it sit for a couple seconds and move it around until this meat browns all the way. And I'm going to do both batches, and then I'm going to get back to you. All right, so both batches are browned. So now we're going to put the remaining that was already done back in. Give it a quick stir. And now we're going to start adding all of our other ingredients. I'm going to put the onions in. Kind of spread them around a little bit. Same thing with the potatoes. And the carrots. And the mushrooms. Oh, that one snuck by me there. Let me throw that out. Give this all a big stir up. And let's start adding the rest of the ingredients. The rosemary, the pepper, the garlic, the Worcestershire, the salt, of course, most importantly, the bay leaf, and then using my rubber spatula, the mustard, and the tomato paste. And then I'm going to put in that cup of red wine, the 2 cups of beef broth, and I'm going to give this a big stir now. And now that this is all mixed up, it's going to be put the lid on and get things going. So you grab your lid, and I know on mine I could remove my warnings, but I prefer to leave them on so I can remember that it got a warning. It's closed. I've got it set to seal. We go to pressure cook. I'm going to go to pressure cook for 35 minutes. Now, if you have a stew setting on your pot, go ahead and do that. And start. So now this is going to preheat itself up, and then it'll go for 35 minutes. Once that's done, we're going to let that have a natural release, which can be between 10 to 40 minutes, but probably it's closer to 10 to 15 for it to lose its seal on its own so we can open it back up. That's going to give it the maximum amount of time to cook. So we'll see you back once this is ready to remove. Okay, the 35 minutes are up, so now we have to wait for the natural release. And just so you know what that's going to look like, if you see that little piece of metal sticking up there, I call that the flag. I'm sure there's a better term for it. But when that flag drops, then it will have released its pressure all the way, and you can open up the lid, and we move on to the next step. Okay, the flag is down, so this should be ready to go. At that point, I now want to, and it has been 30 minutes, by the way. I put it to vent, just in case. Open up the lid, and we see what we got going on here. Now, this may not be thick enough yet, but it is certainly cooked. So as you can see, it's still kind of soupy. So we got to do some additional stuff. I have a teaspoon of cornstarch and a half a cup of water, which I'm going to add to this after I've stirred them up really good by shaking in this mason jar. And I'm going to stir that up, and I'm going to bring this back to saute. Just enough to get it back simmering, and that will help thicken this stew up. The smells are amazing. So we are going to let this get back to a simmer, and that should thicken it. And if we need to add more cornstarch, we can. But we want to get it to a consistency that we like for stew. Okay. By the time I was done, it was about 3 teaspoons, which is 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and then I let it just saute and bubble for 5 minutes once it got up to a simmer. And as you can see, it is much thicker now. If you want it to be almost like a pudding, you can add more cornstarch or just let it reduce longer. But I like having it be more like a stew personally. I don't want to have it to be so thick that I can chew it. I want the pieces of meat and vegetable to be chewable, but I want the rest of it to be something that'll sop up with bread and things like that. So this for me is now ready to go. Like I said, your own personal mileage can vary depending on how thick you like it. So we're going to head over to plating now and finish up. Okay, it's time to stew. I like taking a nice big scoop of this. Now, if I'm gonna make a link to my bread bowl recipe, which is inside the clam chowder episode. But if you want to put this in a bread bowl, I'd say that's spectacular and a really great way to do it. Otherwise, you can just have like a baguette or some other crusty bread that you can break off to sop this up while you're eating it. And then a salad on the side, or even just this stew by itself. Put it in a mug on a hot day. And remember, if you see the bay leaves, take them out. All right, so this is great for what ails you on a cold, wet day, or even on a summer day, but I prefer this when it's cold out and it's wintertime to warm you up on the inside after being out and about. Hopefully you find it delightful. This is something that anybody can make on a weeknight. It takes a little bit longer than than your average walk home and it's ready in 20 minutes. This is about an hour's worth of work, but you know what? The results speak for themselves. The smell is amazing, and this would take all day otherwise. But if you decide you don't have an Instant Pot, you could certainly use a crock pot and then set it on low for 8 hours, and then you finish off with kind of the same process as far as thickening it at the end. You can also substitute out whatever vegetables you like, add or subtract. Like if you like celery, go ahead and put some celery in there. Anything you got in the fridge that you think would be good in stew is good in stew. So I'd love it if you guys would try this and let me know how it went. Keep on going. Melissa, I hope you like this. And let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if there's something else you want me to do. Check out my Facebook page. Link will be below. And send me notes about what you'd like to challenge me to next. As always, if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please do. And I hope to see you again at the next meal. Have a wonderful day.